The New York Knicks had a very splashy offseason in the summer of 2024, trading a treasure chest of draft picks to the Nets for Mikal Bridges, and then right before the season began, they shipped Julius Randle to Minnesota in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns. This talent was enough to get them all the way to the conference finals, but when they made it there, their weaknesses became glaring. Basic offense, no depth, players being overburdened, Jalen Brunson in particular. As a result, head coach Tom Thibodeau was fired and replaced by Mike Brown, a more offensively minded coach. They also signed some solid role players, none of which are guarantees, but as a collective, they more or less guarantee an improvement in the depth department. In my opinion, this roster has a higher ceiling than just a conference finals appearance. I thought they were just a few adjustments away from being a dominant team. And now that some of those adjustments are in, I think this could be the best Knicks team ever, or at the very least, the best in the last 50 years. Hello everybody, welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Also check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. Also, this video is coming out the same day as the Stephen A. Smith Hater Manifesto. I realized that I promoted that earlier on in the week in the every NBA team's biggest wild card video, but that ended up being pushed. We had some issue with the sponsor. It has been dealt with. We should hopefully have that out today. Probably later today than when this initially went up, but you get the picture. So please go watch that when it comes out. Now, probably the most interesting thing to me about this Knicks team right now is what their starting lineup will look like. There is a core four that will start no matter what, Brunson, Cat, OG, and Bridges, but the fifth starter could be one of three players who all bring their own strengths and weaknesses. Last year, they went with Josh Hart. The benefit of Josh is that he does a lot of the little things while still managing to be quite the stat sheet stuffer. He rebounds exceptionally well for someone his size. Last year, he averaged 9.6 boards a game, with 2.1 of them being offensive boards. He also led the team in minutes with 37.5 a game because Tibbs loves running players into the ground. He also was their second best playmaker, averaging just short of 6 assists last year, and he's generally a pretty damn good defender. Because he has his reputation as a hustle guy, he does often get a little bit overrated as a defender, but by no means is he anywhere near a bad one. The problem comes with his scoring game. He can be pretty good inside the arc. Last year, he shot just under 62% on his two-pointers, a career high, at least at that volume it was. His primary issue is three-point shooting. During the regular season, he shot 33% from three on 3.3 attempts per game. Wow, that is a lot of threes in that sentence. Now, he does have a history of shooting better in the playoffs, which is commendable, but it is still on a very low volume while going completely uncontested. I feel like I need to make a video about this someday because a lot of people look at raw percentages and decide that a dude's a good shooter from that. Like, hey, Hart shot 37% from three in the playoffs last year, but when you go and look at his makes, the dude is wide open all the time. It's good to hit the wide open threes that you do take, but if the defense on every possession is going to leave you wide open, taking just 3 of them a game when you're wide open and hitting just over 1 of them a game does not fix the underlying issue. When Hart is out there, teams are more prone to play 5v4, which mucks up the spacing and makes offense a lot harder for the core 4. Technically, all 4 of them shot a lower percentage from 3 than Hart, but that's while actually being guarded. There's a big difference there, and that's not even mentioning the difference in volume. As a result of this, Hart actually played less minutes in the playoffs, and Tibbs consistently deferred to Mitchell Robinson playing alongside Cat at the 4. This proved especially effective versus Boston, as they just outright did not get to the rim when Robinson was present. So that's a good option, but it does come with its own set of issues. Robinson is even less offensively capable than Hart, but if you're choosing between 2 negative offensive pieces, you might as well go with a guy who's so much more impactful on defense. He can also make up for the loss of Hart's rebounding. But I will say, from the preseason stuff this year so far, the Knicks tried to use Mitchell as more of a playmaking hub, and I really don't think he has that in him. If he does, that's great. I'd love to be wrong, and it adds even more dimension to this offense. But I would bet that this team will miss Josh Hart's playmaking if Mitchell Robinson ends up being who they start and close with. There's also the issue of Cat's potential matchups playing the 4 spot. Against some teams, that's fine. Against others, it is decidedly not. Now, there is a third option who could be a happy medium between the two. I am referring to their recent addition, Guerschon Yabusele. Guerschon is a 3-and-D forward who is a pretty solid playmaker, three-point shooter, and rebounder with reason to believe that he can be an impact defender. More on that in a second. Let's first focus on the offense. Last year, Yabusele shot 39% from 3 on just under 4 attempts per game, doing this in 27 minutes a night, and notably doing it while playing on an extremely dysfunctional Sixers team. It is hard to be a consistent role player on terrible and inconsistent teams, and yet Guerschon managed to do it. He also averaged 2 offensive boards, 5.6 overall, which when you up that to per 36, just so we compare his rebounding rate to Hart's, because he played fucking 37 minutes a game. But if you bump that up to per 36, he averaged 7.5 rebounds. That is, of course, still short of Josh Hart's figure, but it's pretty damn good for a forward. Now, on defense, Yabusele was up and down. He had his moments, but in general, the consensus that I saw from Sixers fans is that he's mostly a neutral defender. But just as it's hard to be consistent on offense on a bad team, it's especially hard to be good on defense on a bad team. There isn't a lot of positive motivators there. I'm optimistic on Yabu's defensive side because he has great size without sacrificing too much speed. He is 6'8" with a 7'1" wingspan, and he is also 265 pounds, which actually makes him heavier than both Cat and Robinson, so he brings a significant size advantage as opposed to Hart. He's not going to bring the defensive impact of Robinson, nor the impressive counting stats and hustle of Josh Hart, but he's also not going to bring the glaring weaknesses on offense that those guys have. All of that said, I really don't think that they could go super wrong with any of these three, and it's not like they have to choose one as the definitive starter or closer. They can play it by game or by matchup, and it's this versatility that was lacking in last year's Knicks. Speaking of, let's get to their depth. Obviously, I just went over Yabu, who is their biggest addition, and I think will be their most impactful one, but they also added Jordan Clarkson, Malcolm Brogdon, and Garrison Matthews. None of these guys are players that I would be betting the house on, but they do present more options than the Knicks had last year. Jordan Clarkson is literally my least favorite type of basketball player. I hate a guy whose capabilities on the floor begin and end with scoring the ball for themselves while being inefficient on top of it. Negative playmaking and defense and negative efficiency on top of it all. However, that type of player can be quite valuable in a limited capacity as opposed to being a starter, or more accurately, a 30-minute per game guy like he was in Utah and even before he was banished to Mormon land. He averaged 18, 3.5, and 3.7 rebounds in Utah, but only got a minimum contract from the Knicks due to his glaring defensive and efficiency issues. But if he's just a 15-minute per game guy who doesn't have any kind of lead ball handling role on offense, then he can be an effective spark plug. Give him a few minutes, see if his shot is on, and if he's out there bullshitting, well, then you can just pull him with no real consequence. It is a low-risk, high-reward move. He certainly should make for a better spark plug than Cam Payne or Landry Shamet at the very least. Malcolm Brogdon could end up being an absolute home run for New York because he is a great backup guard to have if he's healthy. He's been injury-prone pretty much all of his career, and it has gotten worse in recent years as over the last 4 seasons, he's played on average 41 games a year. Last year, he played just 24 games for the Wizards, and he didn't exactly kill it in that time. But when he's available, he's a capable scorer, playmaker, three-point shooter, and even a pretty solid defender. The last time he was healthy for a full season, he won Sixth Man of the Year with the Celtics. If they manage to get that out of Malcolm, then the Knicks are sitting very pretty. But also, if he's just good for 15 to 20 minutes a game off of the bench, that also goes a long way, especially in the ball handling department where they were sorely lacking last year. Garrison Matthews has gotten very little attention when it comes to this team, and understandably so. He's not exactly a highlight reel player, nor do his numbers really impress that much, but I do think he can be an effective Landry Shamet replacement. Garrison is a career 38% three-point shooter, taking 3.9 threes a game and an average of 17.5 minutes. Last year, he shot 39% on 4.6 attempts a game, which per 36 jumps up to 9.5 attempts per game. Again, not saying he's going to play 36 minutes. It's just to give you an idea of his volume. So in the minutes that he gets, he's an extremely high volume and really good percentage three-point shooter, and that makes him another guy who can handle 15 to 20 minutes per game and play his role well. I know that seems like a lot of time to dedicate to a bunch of 7th and 8th men, but in the case of this Knicks team and the modern NBA in general, these types of players matter a lot. I remember a few weeks ago when I made a video on Little Rusty about Fred VanVleet missing this season, there was some guy who commented, if losing VanVleet makes you no longer contenders, then you were never a contender in the first place. But no, today's NBA is so often defined by role players. New York's role-playing core is fine now, but it used to be outright terrible. So that is a significant step in the right direction. Another step in the right direction was firing Tom Thibodeau. I'm a Bulls fan whose early years of learning about the NBA was in large part defined by Tibbs. And man, that guy is the definition of a double-edged sword. On one hand, if you want to take a terrible Knicks team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2013 and, lead them to the playoffs, then he's the perfect guy for that. But when you have a roster that has the pieces to contend for a title, then he's going to put a cap on your ceiling. He is a floor-raising, ceiling-capping coach. He plays stars too much, which causes injuries. Luckily, they mostly dodged those bullets last year, but it affected them a lot in their 2024 playoff run. He relies on stars too much to define the offense, which results in overburdening guys, especially Jalen Brunson, not going deep into the bench, even in the regular season when it's time to try and develop those pieces for the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, there is no reason in 2025 to be playing any of your players 37 minutes a game in the regular season. His defensive game plan is the reason that they got past Boston. New York played some of the best perimeter defense I have seen this decade in games 1 and 2 of that series. But his offensive game plan is also the reason that they couldn't get past the Indiana Pacers. Indy has a dynamic offense featuring 9 rotational players who all played 14 plus minutes a game, with 7 of them averaging 9 or more points. I'm referring to their playoff stats here. New York, on the other hand, in this series had 7 players who played 14 plus minutes and only 4 who averaged 9 plus points, which was the core 4 players. Indiana's key players were better rested with less of a possession-to-possession offensive burden, and that is only getting into usage and minutes distribution. The other glaring hole is how this team generated offense. Far too often, the offense would devolve into Brunson ball, which is reminiscent of Thibodeau's offensive approach in his Bulls era. Essentially, he'd say back then, and this has been confirmed by Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, he'd be like, okay, I have the defense, I'm coaching the defense, and as long as you guys keep up the defense, then the offense can be dictated by Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose just handles the offense. And to me, especially in 2025, if you're going to be that one-sided in your preparation, you should just be an assistant coach. Now, Mike Brown could be accused of having the same issue, but just offense instead of defense. But I think in today's NBA, offensive coaching is far more important than defensive coaching. Like, New York's defense was so good because of a few basic principles that were applied well. It's on Tibbs to hammer those ideals home, but ultimately, the only schematic role that he really played a big part in defensively was just hiding Brunson and Cat on switches, which he also didn't do a very good job of versus Indiana. My point is, New York could have been a great defense without Tom Thibodeau, but but they should have been a better offense if not for Tibbs. I am more confident that Mike Brown could replace last year's Knicks defense than I am that Tibbs could recreate something resembling the 2023 Sacramento Kings offense. The number one issue with New York's offense last year was the lack of a two-man game between their two best scorers. Brunson and Cat played my turn, your turn. Now that approach is still going to generate a lot of offense, better than average offense, quite a bit. But when the pace slows down in the playoffs, you are giving the defense a break by simply isoing all the time. We have moved past that approach in 2025. They can just load up on Brunson and Cat with very little consequence. Having the two run pick and roll makes the defense make more decisions. As a result of this approach, New York also had a very stiff offense, very little off-ball movement, a lot of dudes just watching Brunson isolate. Maybe you get an open corner 3 or 2 out of it, but that's about it. Mike Brown helped create an incredible two-man game between Fox and Sabonis, another offensively minded guard/big duo. Cat and Brunson arguably have more offensive options out of a pick and roll between the two, because while Cat isn't the playmaker Sabonis is, he is a vastly superior three-point shooter, and Brunson might not have Fox's speed, but he is a far superior shooter both from 3 and mid-range. I will add that in the preseason there has been very little two-man game between the two. I hope that is just a quirk of figuring shit out in the preseason. I'm not going to read into it too much, but it did have me looking at them a little bit sideways. But if there is more movement out of their wings, extra playmaking as a result of Brogdon's presence, and a strong two-man game between some of the best offensive players in the league, then I see no reason why New York wouldn't be a top 5 offense this year, as they were last year in the regular season, but ideally this time that offense translates far better to a playoff setting. And honestly, if Mike Brown fully maximized the potential of this group, I could see them being the best offense in the NBA. I mean, think about it. If last year they were 5th in offensive rating during the regular season with a pretty minimalist approach to their offense, imagine what it would look like if there was like an actual strong system in place. And again, I don't expect some notable defensive fall off to be paired with that. If they reach that point, then I think they are the best team in the Eastern Conference. Their only real competition is the Cavaliers, and personally, I think the Knicks have the edge. I would still pick Denver or OKC against them in a final series, but I don't think it'd be a wash by any means. We will have to see though. As of now, this is all just a theory, but as for this being the best Knicks team in years, well, I'd say that's pretty easy because it's the fucking Knicks. I loved the 2013 Knicks roster, but honestly, last year's Knicks were better. Then you'd have to go back to the 90s and look at some of Patrick Ewing's teams, and to me, those teams were always good, but not great, and it was more so because of Ewing and not because they were some incredibly managed and super talented rosters. And I think this Knicks roster this year has a chance to be a great team, and not just because of their best player. Now, I won't argue for them over the 70 and 73 Knicks. It's hard to argue that a championship team is worse than one that I'm at least not projecting to go all the way. But who knows? Maybe the Knicks do go all the way and win the 2026 NBA championship. I think it is more likely that they win the East and leave it at that, but it's well within the realm of possibility that they win it all. So yeah, I think the Knicks are going to be pretty good. That's the end of this video. Again, go check out the Stephen A. Smith Hater Manifesto, and goodbye.